few months ago, I set out with a goal, and that goal was very simple: to make a recording course that encapsulated the 15 years that I spent in the industry, winning Grammy Awards, getting platinum plaques, getting gold plaques, getting accolades, being one of the best working engineers in the industry. Because I believe truly that the very first time somebody pushes record on the record is when the best records start. In order to make records that stand the test of time, you have to have a solid engineering background. And I earned that through trial by fire over my 15 years. And I knew I could put together a course that encapsulated all of the things that I knew without any of the bullshit, without any of the sales, without any of the buy this and it'll make you better mentality that exists inside of the audio industry. So that's why I created Greazy Does It, the principles of recording. This is going to be a walkthrough of everything that you'll find inside of the Greazy Does It principles of recording course. All right, here we go. Let's do this. This is the tour of the Greazy Does It principles of recording. When you start off, first module, there's 4 modules, and the first module that you're going to see is the tools of the trade. The tools of the trade is going to break down everything that you need to know about the gear inside of the studio, the things that you're going to have to own in order to be an engineer. This is going to talk about, well, let's go through it. There's I think like 20 videos in each module. There's 4 modules. There's 130 lessons total. All right, so here's our little welcoming. Here we're going to talk about signal flow, and you're going to learn signal flow in the way that I learned signal flow, right? Which is explaining it from the way a sound comes into the sky to when it comes out of the speakers and how we get from A to B, everything in between, including the computer. After that, we're going to get an introduction to microphones, and then you're going to have a quiz. Types of microphones. We're going to talk about different types of microphones. We're going to have some side quests inside of these lessons where I teach you about things that are not necessarily lessons, but things that you're going to need to know in order to navigate through this profession. More quizzes, microphone preamps, right? Also, something that I love that we did throughout this whole course was I peppered it with little interviews throughout the whole course where you can hear an interview from somebody like Keith Munson, who's the assistant manager at East West Studios, who they hire, why they hire them, what makes a good assistant, what makes a good engineer, what makes music, right? So that is all there. That's tools of the trade. This is still tools of the trade. Every now and then I throw a little rant in there about, some classic stuff that I hate. EQs. We talk about analog EQs. We talk about digital EQs. Compression. And we have a quiz after most of these sections as well. After that, we have effects. After that, we have building your own reverb if you want to make your own reverb. Here we are, we're into interfaces. We're going to talk about what makes a good interface, why you need an interface, what matters about the interface. We're going to talk about how DAWs don't matter. We're going to talk about consoles, and we're going to talk about every type of console, from your simple 2-channel Mackie console all the way up to a 40 or 80 channel studio console. After that, we're going to talk about patch bays. We're going to talk about troubleshooting. We're going to talk about monitors, why you should have speakers inside your room and what speakers you should have. After that, tools of the trade. We're going to talk about DI boxes, accessories, making your own cables. I'm going to teach you how to make your own cables. I'm going to teach you what hard drives you should be buying. I'm going to do another rant about failure. I'm going to do a quick tip about backing up your work. We're going to talk about treatment inside of a studio. We're going to talk about why foam sucks. We're going to have an interview to wrap up Module 1, Tools of the Trade. We're going to have an interview with Trevor Taylor, who is Jeff Ellis's assistant and my former assistant working for Greazy Will. And that's going to wrap up Tools of the Trade. After that, the second module, we're going to go into the basics of recording. This is where we're going to talk about how to actually record. In this lesson, you're going to learn how to set up microphones. You're going to learn mic techniques. We're going to talk about all the things that you need to know to actually set up microphones and get a good sounding track. Another rant about not chasing other people's sounds. Click bleed. A lot of these cool little side projects in here are going to be things like this, where I'm like, hey, you don't have to buy expensive equipment. Here's how you make that equipment, like a subkick. We're going to talk about drums, how to record small room mono drums, how to do small room stereo recording, how to do big room recording. I'm even going to give you a little alt drum miking video where you can learn how to do other miking techniques outside of the normal stereo overhead vibes. We're going to record bass, we're going to record guitars, we're going to talk about gain staging, we're going to talk about piano, then we're going to take a little trip over to Kate Dutton, who is a professional piano player, and we're going to see what her studio's like. We're going to find out that not every studio is the same, not every studio is built with mixing in mind, not every studio is built with like the diversity of the Greazy factory. We're going to talk about synths, and in this synth section, we're going to talk about MIDI. We're going to talk about how to route your entire studio to be one giant effective MIDI studio. We're going to do some cool stuff. We're going to talk about reamping. We're going to talk about vocals and how to record vocals, and you're going to get some really good tips on how to record vocals. We're going to talk about recording percussion. We're going to talk about the Greazy strategy of mix level tracking. And then we're going to finish this section off with an engineer interview with Nico Bolas, who is one of my mentors and honestly, one of my favorite people to ever exist. He is honestly like a father figure to me in many ways. And that's going to wrap up our second module, the basics of recording. Now, the third module is where we're going to get into doing actual practical application. And in these two modules, the following two modules, this is going to be more rock-based recording. Now, why did I start with rock? Because the principles of rock are where I started at. The principles of rock are what I thought you should learn to start with, and then you can move upwards from there to learn other things. And those principles are what I used to record the Killer Mike record, which won 3 Grammys, swept the rap categories. I used the rock principles that I grew up with to record everything on the Killer Mike record, and that's why that album has such a distinct and unique sound. It's all real instruments across the board. Inside of the indie rock section of this, we're going to do first gear breakdowns, where we talk to every member of the band, and we're going to get what they brought with them, why they like those things, what is cool about all those things to them, and we're going to just talk my own personal experience with those things. You're also going to get more side quests and tips inside of these modules as well. Then we're going to go into strategy. How do you set up to record a band like this? What do you prepare? What do you leave to chance? What do you need to do to be a successful recording engineer on a day like that? We're going to do the demo review. We're going to listen to the demo from the band, and then we're going to go through what they want. Then we're going to have some strategy where we revise the plan, because first casualty of war is always the plan. Then we're going to show every single miking setup that we did for recording this band. All right. Then we're going to get into the actual recording. First, we're going to show you the first take, and what they sounded like right out of the box. And then we're going to go through the things that we changed, what we thought was needed to be better, until we get until we get the take that is this band really executed what we were looking for. After we get that main take, we're going to talk about recording overdubs. And then we're going to get into recording vocals at the very end of this. Then at the end of this, we're going to have some final thoughts. We're going to talk about the lessons that I learned. We're going to talk about what the band liked, what they didn't like. We're going to do a final listen of the song and add anybody else's thoughts. And then I'm going to talk about the next day, right? And then we're going to round out this module with an interview with one of my favorite people, Jason LaRocca, who is here at the Fab Factory, who is an amazing engineer, mixer, who I have been friends with for almost a decade now and have learned some great information from, really cool interviews. The last module is going to be the hard rock module. The hard rock module, we're going to do the same thing where we break down the gear of all these people. Now, this hard rock module, instead of having a band that has a predetermined sound, the hard rock module is going to be session players, people who come in aiming to accommodate me and my happiness. So we're going to have a different vibe for this one than we had for the indie rock one, where they were really set in their ways, right? So we're going to interview all these guys and the way that they come to sessions. We're going to have some more tips. We're going to have some more side quests. We're going to get into doing weed, apparently. And then we're going to talk about the strategy. The strategy for a hard rock band made of session players is going to be entirely different than the strategy for an indie rock band of people who have been playing together and have a set vibe. So we're going to talk about all these things. We're going to go through the same process, and you're going to be able to see how it's different working with different people and for a different sound. Then we're going to get into the recording process. And the recording process is going to be different as well because we're going to have to make different choices. Here on this side quest here in this recording is one of the coolest side quests I did, which is picking a snare with Jake Reed. Well, go over to Jake Reed's house where he has 50 snares, and we talk about how did you decide which snare to use, because it's the same process that you're going to go through whether you're making rock or you're making a song out of samples as a beat for a rapper. You're still going to have to pick a snare, and that snare picking process is going to be the same as what we did here over at Jake's house. We're going to do the rest of the recording process. I'm going to give you some more quick tips, and then we're going to finish off this little section with an interview with Jim Scott, which took us way longer than I thought it would because I loved talking to Jim Scott. It was an amazing time. I went out to his studio. We sat at his bar, and we talked about recording for a solid hour, I think, which is part 2 is down here. Then we do the same thing again. We have the final thoughts going through the band impressions, the lesson learned. We have a little side quest where I go to Arizona and record the band Gray Days, and we talk about that. And then we have the final listen, and then we have another rant. The final thoughts the next day where I go back through the song and experiment with some stuff, make some tweaks. The second part of the Jim Scott interview, and then that is the end. Other than, of course, the bonus materials, which you will have to look at when you buy the course. Now, like I said, this Greazy Does It course, this has a lot of information. It's over 20 hours of instruction. There is everything that you could possibly need to know, as much as I could think of to put inside of a lesson, some caveats, some lessons learned from myself, all of that information. So if you are interested, here it is. Here is everything that is inside of the Greazy Does It course and what you will be learning. And it's all from me, a tried and true with respected credits, Greazy Will. So thanks for checking this out. This is the Greazy Does It Principles of Recording course. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below.